Hello, I'm Esther Giduyot. It's Thursday, February 10th. This is Africa 54.
The United Nations highest court is ordering Uganda to pay reparations of $325 million to the Democratic Republic of Congo. We'll explain why. A new initiative in Senegal hopes to reduce COVID vaccine inequity and make the continent more self-sufficient. And Africa 54 takes a closer look at the challenges experienced by a young woman who suffers from the neglected tropical disease of Elephantitis.
The United Nations highest court is ordering Uganda to pay reparations of $325 million to the Democratic Republic of Congo for its role in the conflict in Congo's eastern Ituri province. David Doyle has more.
Uganda has been ordered to pay $325 million for its role in conflicts in Democratic Republic of Congo's resource-rich Ituri region. But the reparations awarded by judges at the International Court of Justice are far below the $11 billion Congo was seeking. The court dismissed several claims, including broad compensation for macroeconomic damage. It said a clear link between Uganda's actions and alleged economic damage was not shown. Presiding Judge Joan Donoghue said Uganda must pay the reparations in 5 yearly installments of $65 million, starting in September this year.
This global sum includes $225 million for damage to persons, $40 million for damage to property, and $60 million for damage related to natural resources.
Representatives for Uganda at the court did not publicly respond to the ruling. At previous hearings, Uganda had said its economy would be ruined by the billions of dollars Congo was asking for.
The court is satisfied that the total sum awarded and the terms of the payment remain within the capacity of Uganda to pay.
The long-running dispute was first brought before the UN's highest court in 1999. In 2005, the ICJ ruled that Uganda had violated international law by occupying parts of Ituri with its own troops and by supporting other armed groups during a war that raged from 1998 to 2003. Congo returned to the court in 2015, saying negotiations between the neighbors to agree reparations had stalled. Wednesday's ruling is final and without appeal. Congo's representatives have previously said reparations will be distributed fairly to people who suffered directly as a result of Uganda's actions.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Libyan Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Al-Dibiba has escaped an assassination attempt early Thursday. Video released by his office shows holes in the windshield of the roof of his car and in the headlights after assailants riddled his car with bullets. However, a government source close to him says he narrowly escaped unharmed. The source also says the attack happened as Dibiba was returning home, describing it as a clear attempt to kill him, adding that the attackers fled and the incident has been referred for investigation. Armed forces have mobilized more fighters and equipment in the capital over recent weeks, raising fears the political crisis could trigger fighting. Libya has had little peace or stability since the 2011 NATO-backed uprising against Muammar Gaddafi, and it split in 2014 between warring factions in East and the West. Meanwhile, later on Thursday, Libya's eastern-based parliament spokesman declared Fatima Bashagha as the new interim prime minister after a rival candidate withdrew, but it was not clear if the chamber had held a vote. The incumbent Abdul Hamid Al-Dibiba has said he is not recognizing the parliament's attempt to remove him and that his government remains valid and that he will not step down. The World Health Organization estimates that the number of COVID-19 infections in Africa could be 7 times higher than official data suggests. The regional head of the WHO says deaths from the virus could actually be 2 to 3 times higher. At the same time, the WHO says Africa is transitioning out of the pandemic phase of the COVID-19 outbreak and moving towards a situation where it will be managing the virus over the long term. The COVID pandemic has exposed stark vaccine inequities between high and low-income nations and underscored Africa's dependence on outside countries for shots. However, a new initiative in Senegal hopes to reduce that inequity and make the continent more vaccine self-sufficient. Annika Hamishlag reports from Dakar, Senegal.
Senegal administered its first doses to the public in March 2021. Months after COVID-19 vaccines had become available in the West. Since then, supplies have repeatedly run dry in Senegal and other African countries that have relied on the international community for the vaccines. Today, just 11% of Africans are vaccinated, compared to 64% in the US and 85% in the UK, according to government statistics. But scientists aim to change that. The Pasteur Institute of Dakar has partnered with BioNTech to build a production facility for its mRNA vaccines.
So the need to make sure that we have control over supplies is something that is critically important in terms of health security. Having a different level of protection in different parts of the world won't help actually control and end this pandemic.
Africa currently imports 99% of all its vaccines. The new facility is due to open later this year and produce 300 million COVID vaccines annually. South Africa has announced a similar partnership with Moderna. The institute hopes to manufacture vaccines not just for the next pandemic, but also for endemic diseases such as measles and polio.
The standards are indeed getting higher and higher. It requires a level of human resources and skills that are extremely high as well. It's not always within reach or easily found in Africa because it's a new technology.
But Dakar's Institut Pasteur already produces yellow fever vaccines. Scientists there have been manufacturing them for decades.
The Pasteur Institute has a lot of experience producing vaccines. The yellow fever vaccine was developed and produced there. With their vaccine development expertise, there is nothing to prevent them from producing another that's developed elsewhere.
Misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines has run rampant throughout Africa, Bajan added. So vaccines made in Africa by Africans could help increase trust and the number of people willing to get the jab. Annika Hammerschlag for VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
Neglected tropical diseases are a diverse group of 20 conditions that are mainly prevalent in tropical areas where they mostly affect more than 1 billion people who live mostly in impoverished communities, according to the World Health Organization. These diseases affect the most vulnerable sections of the population, significantly influencing their quality of life. In this report by Sergio Nabi, we see the dramas and challenges experienced by a young woman who suffers from lymphatic filariasis, also known as Elephantitis. VOA's Joad Jose Santarita narrated this report.
It started with a little discomfort. As time went on, the discomfort got worse.
It seemed like a simple thing that would get better with doctor's appointments and treatment, but it was lasting longer. Years went by, I kept getting treatment. I was admitted at the hospital, but so far no improvement.
Angela, who prefers not to use her real name, suffers from lymphatic filariasis, also known as Elephantitis, a neglected tropical disease transmitted by a mosquito bite, which is characterized by swelling in some organs such as the arms, legs, breasts or testicles. According to the World Health Organization, NTDs affect more than 1 billion people in the world, and 40% are living in Africa. There are common NTDs such as onchocerciasis, that causes skin problems and blindness, schistosomiasis, that mainly affects the urinary system and intestinal system, causing serious health issues that can lead to death. Another one is soil-transmitted helminths that reduce the body's ability to absorb nutrients and vitamins. And also trachoma, which can cause severe scarring of the inside of the eyelid leading to permanent blindness.
In Portuguese, we call them tropical diseases because they appear in the tropical climate, and we refer to them as neglected because they are diseases that can be prevented, treated, but they are closely linked to poverty.
Angela's days are not easy.
I just get sad because of my limitations. I can't wear the clothes I want, I can't wear the shoes I want, and that makes me unhappy.
Sometimes going out it's hard due to people's prejudice.
The worst thing is that I can't face people in the street when they make those comments like, "Oh, big leg." They make comments that hurt me. I get really sad.
The disease develops slowly. There are some drugs to treat elephantitis, and surgery is another option.
In the initial phase, before any swelling, the patient can get feverish, muscle pain. They will pass after some days. From the moment the patient gets infected to the moment of any swelling and other signs of elephantiasis, it can take a year or more to develop.
World Health Organization data from 2016 shows that 14 million people got treatment for elephantitis, but 20.2 million were still in need of it. In Maputo Central Hospital, this disease is the second highest reason for patient appointments for vascular problems, and despite the pandemic, the hospital has been able to respond to the demand. For Angela, the family support and hospital assistance have been fundamental to fight the disease she has been living with for 13 years. Every week she goes to the doctor and she feels optimistic. The dream of wearing the shoes she loves might be closer to coming true.
That was Joad Jose Santarita narrating for reporter Sergio Nabi. Leaders from around the globe gathered recently in Rwanda for the Kigali Declaration on Neglected Tropical Diseases. It was an opportunity to secure bold commitments to deliver against the World Health Organization NTD roadmap. Observers say despite progress being made in the fight against NTDs, greater action is needed to eliminate the world of the diseases. For more insight, Africa 54 correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Francisca Mutapi, a professor of global health and infection and immunity, and also co-director of the Global Health Academy at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
Neglected tropical diseases are huge. They're the largest parasitic burden in Africa. So if we take just one of them, it is the second most important public health problem in Africa, second only to malaria, and this is bilharzia. And the problem with these diseases is that they affect the whole body. So you have some that cause blindness. You have some that cause physical disfigurement. I'm sure you've heard of elephantitis, where the limbs and parts of your body grow really, really large, hence the name elephantitis. And if you take schistosomiasis or bilharzia, it impacts on children's ability to learn. We have a version of that disease that affects the urogenital tract. So affects reproductive health. A lot of the parasitic worm infections will affect the health of pregnant women, so that both the pregnant woman and the child that is born afterwards suffer health complications. And this is before we even get to the cancers.
10 years ago, the world committed to control, eliminate, or eradicate 10 neglected tropical diseases by 2020 and improve the lives of over 1 billion people. Talk to us about that. What improvements have been made since the London Declaration?
I have been working on these diseases for 20 years, and I have had areas of frustration when I really feel we could do more. Again, whenever I introduce these diseases, I always say these diseases are unnecessary because we have all the tools to really control them and eradicate them. We see the impact that has been made by the global commitment from the London Declaration in 2012. And what happened then is a lot of stakeholders, governments, pharma, and development partners came together, and we've made significant progress. 10 years on, for example, 600,000 people no longer need treatment. We have eliminated some of these diseases in some of the African countries, for example, trachoma in the Gambia. And the fact that we've been able to eliminate a large number of these diseases in a lot of countries shows us that we're perfectly capable of eliminating the rest of these diseases in the rest of the countries.
The world gathered in Kigali, Rwanda, for the Kigali Declaration on NTDs. What is the significance of this gathering and what transpired from it?
We're really, really excited to have been part of the process of bringing the Kigali Declaration together. First and foremost, it is the Kigali Declaration on NTDs, not the London Declaration on NTDs. That tells you something. Where these diseases are endemic, these countries are taking ownership of the control of these diseases. They are setting the agenda, they are setting the strategy, and they are committing funding as well as support to controlling these diseases through their leadership. So not just in their countries, but also bringing the rest of the African countries together.
Whose responsibility is it to step up effort?
It's everyone's responsibility, and I'll tell you why. It's the person who is exposed to these diseases. It's their responsibility to take up any intervention. We need to ensure that there is compliance. It is the national government's responsibility to be investing in the control of these diseases in their own countries for their own populations, because health underpins any progress for most of the Sustainable Development Goals. It is also the responsibility of countries where these diseases are not endemic, and this is very important for global security. COVID has shown us that you need a health system that is well equipped for surveillance of disease.
Moving forward, where do you see the priorities to the elimination of NTDs?
We need to get the optimal use of the interventions that we currently have. We have drugs. Let's ensure we have all the drugs that are available for everybody. Let's ensure we're accessing everybody who needs these drugs, and let's ensure that we're delivering them timely and optimally. In order for us to really stop transmission, we need to improve the water, sanitation, and hygiene. Finally, let's ensure we've got the health education and the health messaging out there for the affected communities.
Professor Francisca Mutapi, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Francisca Mutapi, a professor in global health infection and immunity and co-director of the Global Health Academy at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. We'd like to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a tech company uses artificial intelligence to detect forced labor. Stay with us.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lino Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
A technology company is using artificial intelligence to detect forced labor and other risks in supply chains. Matt Debo has the story.
The world has become more familiar with the term supply chain, as weak links exposed by the pandemic have triggered global shortages of goods. The increased scrutiny poses an opportunity to delve deeper into the origin of those goods, says Justin Dillon.
Our need to understand how supply chains work is becoming a personal and a professional issue.
Dillon's focus on supply chains grew out of his human rights work, investigating the use of forced labor in manufacturing and food production. He founded the tech company Freedom to provide businesses with more transparency about the products they purchase.
We work with large companies, we work with governments, we work with universities, and what they'll do is they'll tell us what they buy. And all of that information comes into Freedom. We use AI and natural language processing to bring together an analysis for our customers to help them understand where their goods and services are coming from, in some cases all the way down to the raw materials that go into the products that they use.
Freedom's analysis predicts the source of those raw materials and assigns a risk level rating to it based on human rights, workplace safety, environmental laws, and other factors derived from information Freedom deems credible. Freedom's focus on slave labor comes at a time when governments are passing modern slavery laws. There are an estimated 25 million forced laborers worldwide, according to a 2017 report by the International Labor Organization. Dillon hopes to produce a consumer version of Freedom as well.
And I'm actually quite hopeful that in a decade from now, we're going to be able to go to market and buy with our values, and it's just going to be normal.
New tools to help the world buy better. Matt Dibble for VOA News.
At the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, China is using technology to keep athletes and visitors safe as part of its pandemic precautions. However, for visitors, the use of technology can come with security and privacy concerns. Michelle Quinn reports.
For four-time Olympian Chris Mazder, the games this year are different thanks to the pandemic. There are no cheering crowds.
It is going to be strange not having that full Olympic atmosphere.
From the Olympic bubble, where athletes and visitors are monitored for COVID-19 and sleep, eat, and compete, separated from the rest of Beijing, the Olympics look a bit different and come with more technology because of the pandemic. But with technology comes privacy and security concerns, particularly in China.
Thank you.
Human rights groups have been critical of Beijing for its censorship of the internet and the digital surveillance of its citizens. Citing cybersecurity concerns, the FBI advised Olympic Village visitors to leave personal phones at home and use temporary ones. While the FBI's advice was broad, there's been long-standing concern that Chinese authorities track visitors' digital movements.
I think it's very important to take a clean device, keep it clean while you're there, keep your conversations to the point and simple. Don't reveal any personal information that the Chinese government could collect on you.
U.S. authorities have repeatedly accused China and other countries of using cyber attacks to steal information and engage in espionage. But a state-sponsored attack of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics isn't likely, say cybersecurity experts, given China's close geopolitical relationship with countries including Russia and North Korea, where cyber attacks have originated. However, the U.S. agency warned that the Olympics could experience cyber attacks motivated by those seeking financial gain or by so-called hacktivists who want to highlight an issue.
An event like the Olympics on a global scale where the whole world is watching is really an ideal type of event for them to air their grievances.
Technology has played a key role in China's efforts to tamp down the spread of COVID-19 outside and inside the Olympic bubble. Robots are a mainstay inside the bubble. They make and deliver food, clean floors, all to help people maintain some physical distance. Visitors are required to install an app on their phones where they enter daily temperature and virus testing information. Test positive and you are removed immediately from the games. A reported security flaw in the app has been fixed, Beijing Olympics authorities say, and only limited data is collected.
All data collection has strict guidelines clarified by the International Olympic Committee and the Beijing Olympics Organizing Committee after thorough discussion.
Chris Mazder, the luge racer, told VOA before the games began that downloading the app was just something he had to do to compete.
I do believe in data privacy. I feel that I have nothing to hide or worry about on my phone.
As they strive to bring home medals, athletes are also working to protect themselves digitally. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
Losing his eyesight as a teenager, Abdul did not lose sight of his dream to become a journalist. Bandaogo is now a sports commentator working for Burkina Faso's state broadcaster and television. Bandaogo is one of Burkina Faso's most prominent sports journalists. He lost his eyesight as a teenager in 2007 and says it was difficult at first to accept his condition, but he was determined to focus on his abilities instead of his limitations. Bandaogo is now one of a few blind journalists in the country commenting on football matches for state broadcaster RTB. He also says he wants to see more physically challenged people engage in meaningful economic activities.
I've created a philosophy for myself about disability. Between the will to do well and the ability to achieve it, there is always a big gap. But if you give yourself the means, you will end up achieving your goal. I wanted to be a footballer. I couldn't do it on the field. But I'm still a sportsman by giving information and analyzing the different matches for our listeners and viewers.
Bandaogo is working to push for the rights of people living with disabilities, and he highlights issues affecting them through a non-governmental organization that he heads. Through his work as a sports commentator, he is also garnering a following from people who are impressed by his determination. And that wraps up our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website. Washington, thank you for watching.